Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Jack Ryan, Season 3, Episode 7. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're picking up with the team in Moscow, and basically everyone's tackling everything from different situations. I mean, it's all the whole, we got to stop this before it escalates even further situation, but everyone's tackling different angles to it. Obviously, Luca's supposed to meet up with Alexei, but it turns out Alexei already kind of knew what was what. I mean, I guess, right, if Peter knew, that must mean Alexei must have known or whatever too, but he is probably still hoping to get Alexei like face to face because he wanted Alexei to confess and they could take this and use this to discredit Alexei and prevent like Russia from like escalating things because they're thinking that the U.S. is escalating things when in actuality, like it's all, stuff happening within, in Russia. But nevertheless, Luca was taken to a different location, and there, I even love, he saw it firsthand. He's like, oh, like, where are you from? He's like, oh, you're going to be basically telling that guy, like, you're going to be the one that ends up having to put a bullet in me. Because I think he knows, like, I know who Alexei is. Alexei's a politician. He's not a soldier. He won't actually he'll never directly ever get his hands dirty. He'll manipulate and use other people to make it. Because it's like, right, he may have lost his way, but Peter was still a soldier. You're just a politician. Like, to him, it's like, you're kind of scum. Like, you're the one giving orders and stuff like that. But the true, like, warriors are the soldiers. They're the ones that really matter. Because Peter was someone who was, yes, he had his conviction, but he actually went out and did something about it. He actually got his hands dirty. What about you, Alexei? You've always been like the conniving behind the scene type of guy. And it's like, yeah, everything you did in the Czech Republic, it's like, yeah, nice job using the mountain/tunnel to block the explosion, but it's like, yeah, you haven't stopped anything. Things are still going to escalate. And so, luckily, Jack was there to kind of, like, save him. Well, because Alexei had just left, but I guess he pulled off, and he knows, like, he probably had word of, like, right, those were Alexei's people, so it's like, yeah, word most likely got back to him, like, okay, oh, we haven't gotten any, I haven't talked to anyone that I left in that room to kill Luca. Okay, well, they must be dead, so Luca's still out there somewhere, so. Well, one of his men one of his men actually got away in a vehicle. I completely forgot about it. So that's how, because I was thinking like, oh, them not reporting in would be enough. But it's like, no, one of the guys actually like barreled out of there in a van. So at least, so he would have warned Alexei about what was what. So that side of things, I mean, it worked out because they were able to get Alexei admitting what he did, that he had Dmitry killed. So at the same time this is all happening, you're having Mike, who's trying to get towards Dmitry's wife, because it's like, right, if we could get to her, we could get to the president of Russia, trying to convince him to stop things. Because obviously, like any other attempt to reach him, obviously Alexei would block that on every front. So it's like, right, we need another way. So later on, they got the confession from Alexei and got it, the confession that Luca recorded, and they got it to Madame Popov. And obviously, she sat down with Alina and kind of, discussed about basically how they're going to handle this situation going forward. And so while that's happening, well, because prior to that, Alina had to have her meeting with Alexei. So there's like, right, so he doesn't fully suspect what we're up to. Let him be so focused over here. He's not paying enough attention to what Mike is doing, trying to get close to Madame Popov. So I love that. Like, does he legitimately not know how to speak Russian? Because he had to use like a Google translator, like he had to use a translator to be like, yo, I need to borrow your car, then pull the gun on the guy. Because the guy was like, yeah, no English. And it's like, I guess Mike just doesn't speak Russian. Either way, Greer ends up, trying to meet up with an old contact, someone on the Russian side of things that what the guy's name, like Vova or something like that. And it's like, try to go to that guy for information. That guy ultimately ended up straight up betrayed Greer and tried to kill him, but Greer like threw him down the stairs. So I was like, is he dead? Oh, nope, he's still alive. Alexei and Elena had their meeting, and obviously she had to play like, hey, he's a person that's in control, he's so much smarter or better than me, yada, yada, yada. Had to play into his ego. So obviously to buy them enough time, but he still ended up saying a lot that cut her deep. He ended up basically kind of reinforcing a lot of stuff that she heard from her dad that she kind of learned recently, like how much of what I have is really mine, and how much was it's like, oh, do the people know that who got you in your position, knowing like, right, it was my dad. I mean, who knows how many the general public, like, I mean, how much of this Raddick and Peter stuff, I'm sure the Raddick stuff might be a little more, you can publicize that more. I don't know how much Alina's going to publicize the whole thing about her dad. I don't know. But either way, he was just saying everything he could to really get underneath her skin. Because basically it's like, hey, you've basically fallen in this position because you've refused to take a side until now. It's time to choose a side. You're kind of been caught, because you're the president of the Czech Republic, everything that's going down. Now you're also working with the Americans. So it's like, yeah, you need to kind of choose a side. So like basically, back out with your working with the Americans type of situation, and basically kind of saying like, you better, and go ahead and fly home because you never know while you're away, your house could be burning. Now, obviously, the general way you could interpret that is like, okay, well, the way she's interpreting it, the way everyone would interpret that, it's like oh yeah, like your home will literally burn. Like there'll be some fires if you don't. But I'm sure it's also also on the grander scale of just like, no, like as in your country will kind of catch fire with everything that's going on. So you might want to be there to kind of bolster defenses and back out before you end up being on the wrong side of this when things really pop off. So, because we do see Alexei early on still pushing the president to go in a more aggro position, but even he's having his reservations about going that far. And I love that Alexei trying to put it poetically, like, right, how can it really be seen as like equal footing when we've never been on equal terms? Because it's like, because he was trying, essentially it's like, because of where the U.S. has put themselves, they're basically put themselves on like DEFCON 3, so it's like in the middle ground, and it's, I guess, like Russia, like the president said a word that I guess is their equivalency. It's like, right, it's a stalemate, but it's like, how can it be a stalemate when we've never been on a same playing field because the U.S. has a mightier military presence and stuff like that? But he ends up talking about they are Goliath and we are David in this situation. So they got like, what was it, like some jets or whatever in position, because the U.S. in response to everything went down, they had no choice but to kind of bolster their different, like kind of put up a line and be like, all right, like let's see who's going to blink first type of situation. And once again, the president was like, all right, we could set up the jets, but do not make any moves without me, which you could tell kind of was like, you could tell it bothered Alexei, but it's also like, all right, it's within, like, it seems like it's in the realm of like, I knew you would do that, so we'll kind of accept that as is for now until we need things to kind of change on that front. And obviously the president being like, right, I'm sorry for the way I'm kind of handling you, but it's just like, right, I miss my dear friend Dmitry. He was a good, dear friend, so you in that position, I'm still getting used to working with you, so... Because he's like, right, you're young and ambitious, so I get why you want to go more like aggro, but me, with my years of experience, being an older generation, I'm not too quick to really go down that route, which I'm sure that in itself is why Alexei has such a problem. It's like, you're not hungry, for like power like you should, which is, once again, what this, they ultimately see that's what this was always about. The war was just kind of like, popping stuff off is just... I mean, they kind of made it clear it was always a little bit about power. It's about making Russia strong, but they probably try to make it seem like it's patriotism, but it's like, it's no one person wanting all this power. Because they ultimately end up finding out the person behind all of this, well, at least a part of this, is a guy named, Antonov. He was someone that was there back in the day with the Sokol situation when they were kind of cleaning up the incident back in 1969. He was there with Luka and Peter. So it's like, right, he's not a politician. He has to be a soldier. So whoever got to him, it had to be like Peter, because there's no way he'd fall in line for someone like Alexei. But then it turns out that he was always Peter's like backup plan, because the plan was to have Anatov like board one of like Russia's like big time, like, we're going to war ships. just to basically start like pop off stuff to kind of get things jumping essentially. This was the plan from the beginning because it's interesting because Alexei didn't bring a point that it's like, oh, like, you know, did you really think I wouldn't be the one to step out of my confrontation with Peter? But Alexei was like, oh, it doesn't matter, which I was like, at first I was interpreting it as like, wait, was that implying like no matter who survived, whether it was, you know, Luca like it is or Peter, like he would have killed either one of them? But I'm like, no, it's just that Peter was such a soldier that he's like, right, he knew he wouldn't survive, but he even made a point last episode of like, yeah, this is beyond me. I've already lit the match, and I've already like set everything in motion, and obviously we see that to be very true in this episode. But the true plan behind all of this is a coup. Anatov is helping Alexei stage a coup because Anatov ended up, well, yeah, I was about to say, like, not unless he doesn't know, but it's like, no, he knows what's what. Because Anatov got on, like, the ship, but the only way a cruiser like that gets, like, the go-ahead is if, like, the president gives those orders, but Alexei signed it himself, because that way, I guess it's like, once you've done your coup thing, like, it's like, right, once you're in power, you don't really have to worry about anyone checking, like, oh, the legitimacy of what got you there. And even if it did, you can probably backdate stuff to be like, oh, when stuff popped off, I ended up becoming president. I had to sadly step in because who knows if he's just going to, like, kill the president, or maybe because things are going to go so terribly, he's going to end, the president's going to, because it was even something Madame Popoff had said where it's like, right, when it comes to presidency, she's like, as you know, it's a situation where you don't kind of just get to walk away. So it's kind of like you kind of die in your position, like people call for your head type of thing. So either like Alexei's going to gun for the Russian president, or it's just going to be like you're going to catch so much flack for things popping off the way it is, and maybe you didn't have the most strongest presence, or you weren't as forceful as it will be perceived like you should have been, so you will be removed from the board and Alexei's going to step up, or I don't know. I mean, how he plans on executing all that's definitely going to be interesting. Because of their talk with Madame Popoff, they were able to get their meeting, a small window meeting of with the president, so to try and resolve this whole situation. But all the while that's happening, stateside, Wright is doing everything she can so to give them other options in the military option, but they kind of have no choice. It's like, we are being, like, regardless of it, because Wright doesn't have any actionable, intel in that is something that is concrete. They needed actual evidence other than the word of her people about what's going down, but that's not enough later on. It's good enough for Wright because she trusts Jack and the team in Russia. They're like, all right, I know, I trust them. If they say this is what's happening, it's what's happening, but that's not enough for the president. So they gotta have to continue down the military strat. And once again, it's just like who's going to blink first. And if because once again, Anatov is on that ship, and it's like, that's not an official Russian ordered situation. It's a coup thing going on, but the U.S. is sadly going to end up playing right into it. So it's just a situation of, there's nothing, I can't just trust your word on this. I have to do kind of what's best until actual evidence shows up. The word of your people is good enough for you, but there's too much on the line. As president, I have to make a hard line decision like this. Unless you bring me some hard evidence that can be actionable, so the U.S. will ultimately, at least going down this route for now, seems like they're just going to end up ultimately playing right into Alexei's hands. And ultimately, you have Luca making the decision that he's going to try and get his way onto that ship. But for Jack, it's like, no, you can't get on a ship full of people, especially with the traitor at the helm of it all. You will get killed. This is suicide. But for him, it's like, yeah, but what would you do? And the sad thing, like, him and Jack are in many regards cut from the same cloth, at least in that regard. And because Jack had asked him earlier in the episode, like, what happened back then in '69, and it's like, why were you there at? Because I keep saying this place's name like differently every time. It's like Matsuoka, like I'm probably butchering it every time I say it, but it's like, why were you there? He's like, I'm the one that gave the order to kill everyone. And he's like, I've got a lot to atone for. And that's why he's pushing so hard for this, because he has to make up for all the death and destruction, the lives he tore apart. Not only, obviously all the innocent people he killed, but also the families that were torn apart. The same families he went to like visit and stuff like that. But they're like, no, I know what really happened. There was that one family in particular, I think it was like the wife being like, I know what you did. Don't just like walk away and just pretend. Like, I know what's really going on here. So, but yeah, that's why for him, it's like, if it means kind of correcting this all, if I die in the process, then so be it. At least I'll die, and I think for him, it's like, I've lived a long time with these regrets, and this is my opportunity. It started all those years ago with Sokolov, and now it's like, for me to be able to play some role, being a bullet that can end up finishing this and ending what started all those decades ago, feels very poetic, I'm sure, for Luca. So it's definitely going to be interesting to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the season finale. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good